We get a lot of feedback and comments and emails here at Muscle Car of the Week, and every once in a while we like to take a couple of minutes and answer some of these letters. So today we're going to be doing a viewer mail segment here on Muscle Car of the Week. The first letter we're going to look at comes from a person named Tim Hammett, and Tim says that he was watching the 1964 Studebaker Avanti video, and he said it looked more like a 63 than a 64. He says with a round headlamp trim, if he recalls properly, back when he was stopping by the Studebaker showroom every day on his way home from high school, he remembers the 64 had a square headlight surround and not the round one. Well, Tim, you've got a good eye, because you're right, the vast majority of 1964 Studebakers had the square headlight surround trim. However, when Studebaker made these bodies, the bodies and the chassis didn't necessarily get assembled in the sequence that they were manufactured. The bodies were made off-site and they were brought in and put together. So there's a lot of what they call transition model 1964 cars that have the earlier 63 round headlight surrounds. It's just one of those idiosyncrasies of the Studebaker Avanti, but it was a very good catch that you saw that. The next question is something we get a lot from a variety of different people, and that is, where do you find the cars that are featured on Muscle Car of the Week? Well, that's one of the reasons why we like doing Muscle Car of the Week, because every car we featured is part of the Brothers collection. Every episode since #1 has been a car from the collection, and the collection right now is still not open to the public. However, at some point, there's plans to possibly be a public space where people will be able to see these things in person. And we're just the lucky ones that can get in there with cameras and share them week after week with you. And as you've noticed, the Brothers collection is very substantial, and we still have a lot of cars to shoot. Next, we've got a comment from a gentleman named Parker Stillwell, and he says, "This is without question the most underrated channel on YouTube." And Parker, we appreciate the kind words, of course. Those are the comments that we like to read. But I would like to point out that overall, we're very happy that the commentary that we get on the videos is generally not just positive, but even when we screw something up, we appreciate that most people are polite and courteous and don't just throw rocks at us. So that's kind of a thank you to everyone who's posted a comment on Muscle Car of the Week videos. Next up, Mr. Chris Pappas says he was watching the 66 Coronet 426 Hemi video, and he points out that the 440 and 500 refer to a trim level and not a body style, like I had incorrectly said. So Chris, thank you for pointing that out. That was a slip of the tongue on our part. Steve Mills was watching the 1971 Hemi Challenger video, and he points out that there's been a few cars on Muscle Car of the Week where the clock in the dashboard is either not functioning, or some people might have noticed we actually showed a clock running backwards at one point. And he asks, is it common on these old cars for the clock not to work, and is it hard to find the internals to make these things run properly? That's a great question. And the clocks in these old cars are all mechanical clocks with springs and gears inside, and over time the little points in the clock wear out and they quit. Today we're used to modern quartz and digital clocks that'll run forever, but back then these things had a definite lifespan. Some of the cars that are all original have had the original clock running until it stopped, and the car's not been restored yet, so the clock has failed. Other ones have been restored. You can restore and repair the clocks. It's not a tremendous job, but some of these just haven't been gotten to yet. And as for the reverse spinning clock, through the magic of television, we actually ran that shot backwards, so you saw a functioning clock, but it was spinning in reverse. To the people that caught that one, thanks for the feedback. That was kind of an interesting catch. Somebody named Jim Jam had commented on YouTube saying that the painted engine bays of the 60s Mopars, as seen in this blue 1970 Hemi Charger, looked really classy compared to some of the other models. And I agree, it's kind of a neat feature when you open the hood on some of the Mopar cars. You see the body color extended all the way through, and then the bright colored engine, as opposed to just black firewall and black fender wells like some of the GM and Ford stuff. Just a neat comment and an interesting feature on some of these old cars. Craig Talbert writes, the 1970 Chevelle SS 396 convertible that we featured, he was pointing out that we showed an old advertisement of a 70 Chevelle SS, and the photograph has the hood open with teeth, but if you look closely, there's not a screaming V8 under the hood. It's a 6-cylinder, and it's a very interesting photograph. It's an old GM press photograph, and we surmise that the photo that went to print had some sort of cut and paste operation where they put a picture of a 454 under the hood, because you could not get a 1970 Chevelle SS with a 6-cylinder under the hood. And we threw that out there and didn't say anything about it in the video just to see if people were paying attention, and we got a bunch of feedback on that. There was another note on that same episode. I incorrectly identified the hood as a cowl induction hood. It is not a cowl induction hood. The real cowl induction hoods have a flapper that opens up. This was not that version. On a Camaro, you had the raised section of the hood without the flapper, but on the Chevelle, it had to have the flapper. Sunnyvale Trailer on YouTube stopped by to comment that the 1970 Plymouth Cuda 340 convertible that we featured, I incorrectly said that the base engine was a 340. In fact, that's incorrect. The 383 was the base engine, and the 340 was optional. And that's another thing that makes this car interesting, in addition to all the other features that you found on that one. It's the optional 340 and not the base 383. Mark LaTurner says about the 1972 Roadrunner GTX. He said that he really liked to see the before pictures of the car, meaning how they looked before restoration. He suggests that we show before and after pictures on all the cars that we feature on Muscle Car of the Week. And that was kind of a neat occurrence, that we actually had access to some of the before pictures and during the restoration. Many of these cars are unrestored, so there is no before picture. Also, some of these cars underwent restorations and the photos don't exist, but where they do exist and we can get access, we'll certainly share them. A guy named Bob Stimson writes in and he said, maybe somebody else has said this, but I would love to see these cars go down the street, down the drag strip, maybe on a twisty road, because just driving around in the parking lot isn't enough to make them excited. Please give us more. Well, that's an interesting comment, and the challenge becomes where we shoot Muscle Car of the Week is kind of a controlled piece of property. And you can imagine the risk factor of taking the very first Hemi Cuda convertible ever built and driving it around on public roads where you're risking getting into an accident, maybe getting a speeding ticket, or some other thing happening to the car. Also, although these cars are all, owned and properly titled and insured, some of them haven't been on the road in a long time, so they might not have current license plates and tags on them. So we're trying to keep this show as above board as possible. So we prefer to have them driven on private property to keep them safe, so that we can continue to bring you this show without hurting any of the cars that are owned in the Brothers collection. And finally, it dawned on me the other day that without the people that bought these muscle cars originally, they wouldn't be here today. And that sounds kind of silly, but if you think about it, there were many thousands of people back in 65, 7, 8, 9, 1970, whatever, that went to their local dealership and either sought out the high performance version or were upsold into buying the Hemi Cuda convertible or whatnot, and then took the car home and took care of it enough to where it still exists today. Now, of course, many of these have been restored, but a lot of these cars you would think would have been long, long gone. And this thought came to me while we were shooting at the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals, and they had 27 of the 42 or so Hemi-powered E-body convertibles on display, and it dawned on me that that's a lot of these cars that have survived, considering how few were actually made. So if there's people out there that bought a muscle car new and are still around and still own it, well, they deserve special recognition. In fact, the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals often has a corral of original owned cars with their original owners on display. But we just have to do a shout out to the people in history who bought these things new and took good enough care of them and handed them down and made sure they went to good enough homes so that they're still around today for future generations to enjoy. If you have any comments or questions, you can always shoot us an email, letters@musclecaroftheweek.com. Feel free to post a comment on the Facebook page or on YouTube in the comments section. And don't forget, you can go to the MuscleCarOfTheWeek.com forum where you can share your own stories of muscle cars that you might have had. And until next time, I'm Kevin Ostie. Thank you for watching Muscle Car of the Week.